The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God and welcome in. I want to start with COVID. It really came, I wasn't aware this was going on still in the culture, but we had said some recent things about the flu vaccine being an mRNA vaccine this fall. Now, remember, that got approved by Trump's MAHA FDA 9-0 to approve the flu shot in mRNA this fall. First time ever. And it sparked some talk around the COVID shot. And I was not really up to speed with how passionate so many COVID shot takers are still about the rollout of the vaccine, the efficacy of the vaccine, the injury rate of the vaccine. There's still people today willing to defend that vaccine as having saved lives. It hurt lives. We're going to look at some VAERS data. And these are just one screenshot of thousands of pages of CDC information that shows that the COVID shot absolutely hurt people. That's not a conspiracy. It's available for me and I'm nothing, and it's available for you and you have no standing in government. So you can get the same data that I see, and it takes your breath away to go back and look at what things were like 5 years ago. Remember, the COVID shot came out December of 2020, and it was at that time proven, said by all the makers, 99% effective. It's going to prevent transmission. It's going to save your life. It's going to save the world, to be honest with you. And that was what it was sold. And we saw the first 6 months of that vaccine damage and kill so many people that the CDC has made available for us to see. So please get out of this pride shell that you're in. Yes, you took a vaccine you probably shouldn't have. I thank the Lord you're still with us today, because not everybody who took a vaccine in its experimental phase that it was when it hit the scene in America, not everybody got to walk away from the pharmacy or get out of bed the next morning or go to dinner that night. It killed them, or it gave them stroke or heart attack. The teen boys, we know about the myocarditis. The fans of the vaccine will say, yeah, but the kids got over it. And I just ask most moms, if you have a 30% chance of leaving your wellness visit with a heart condition, but it's going to save you from COVID, are you going to take it? And I'm asking moms that. And I know 99.99999% of moms are going to say, excuse me, a 30% chance of a heart condition for my teenage son? No, thank you. We'll take our chances with COVID. And we know COVID was so mild. Most people would rather have COVID than food poisoning. Most people would rather have COVID than, like, say, like an E. coli or some kind of infection of the gut. I mean, there's some stuff that's going to put you in bed for a week. And that was not the case with COVID. In fact, COVID is extinct essentially from the population today. Our office used to handle during COVID probably 30 COVID calls a week for treatment, for information, maybe one every other month now, because it doesn't exist anymore. It was a mild, nothing cold that then, of course, got turned into the biggest deal in America, and apparently still has a lot of folks in a trance. So when we think, okay, how do we take our country back? Well, we have to start with, if you took a COVID vaccine, it's no shame. Nobody's mad at you, but you can't defend the institutions that rolled that thing out in a reckless, sloppy, experimental form and then injured just kind of an oblivious fashion, like Russian roulette for some people. Ah, shucks, I was just trying to save myself from COVID and it killed me. And I want people to remember this. Okay, so you took an experimental COVID shot. You walked right into Walgreens and said, I'll do it, and I'll be back in a month for the booster. You said it, okay, because you were scared to death of COVID, right? But doesn't that seem like an odd fear to have from a cold, from the flu, from, I don't know, strep throat? I mean, people are not behaving. So COVID changed behavior. We know that. And it didn't change it for the good. It changed it for the hysterical. So when we put that in perspective now, we also had another element of hysteria coming in. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, right? Because that was also a great fear for Americans. What the president, the White House, and Congress is telling us is that we've got seniors laying in bed at night, cannot sleep. They're worried to death. They're sick to themselves because Iran might have a nuclear weapon. And that was one of the, let's get into Iran in February. Remember, Pam Bondi had that despicable testimony and was subpoenaed mid-February 2026. February 28th, the war with Iran began. And right now we operate under a 60-day MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The Strait of Hormuz is going to be open for good. Lebanon, there won't be any fighting. You know, Israel right now is destroying Lebanon. You understand that, right? They've been told specifically, hey, stop. It's a part of the deal. If we're going to make peace with Iran, you have to stop what you're doing in Lebanon. And of course, Israel tell us that they have the right to defend themselves and all these things. They have the right to exist. And so does Lebanon. I think if Israel has the right to exist, so does Lebanon and the Lebanese people. For some reason, this little tiny itty bitty nothing country in the Middle East called Israel, developed in 1948 by a bunch of atheists, has been given sort of a higher standing than the rest of the Middle East. And I don't believe that that's fair, true, or godly. I don't think Jesus Christ said, and it's clear, you can find this in the scriptures, that somehow, because right now, remember, Jews are currently severed from the tree of life. There are branches have been broken off, right? So as it stands right now, every Jewish person that you love so much and are standing with, they spend eternity separated from God, but for submitting to Jesus Christ. You have to understand that as the American Christian Zionist that loves your Jewish brother, said you're going to look the other way on the genocide, but yet you're not evangelizing him. Don't you think a country, a nation like that should have the word in the country? The Lord Jesus Christ, who stepped foot in Israel, who evangelized up and down, spent so much time at the Sea of Galilee. Don't you think that nation should be set free of the bondage of this demonic version of Judaism that they're currently practicing? And don't you think as the Christian Zionist, you should have enough balls to look at the Jewish brother and say, you're missing the mark. The Lord is Christ. He is King of Kings. He came to save not just you Jews, but us Gentiles too. And right now, you're not going to be walking in his freedom and his glory. You must come to Lord Jesus Christ. Our Christian Zionists don't do that at all. They're allowing pagan worship. Because remember, after the temple fell, 70 AD, Israel stopped, the Jewish people stopped sacrificing. There was no temple to go to, and they practiced a new form of Judaism in which the rabbi and all the rules were kept just as such. But there was no love in the heart of the post-Christ Jew. It didn't evolve into something good, into something very bad, in which they practice a form of Judaism that does say it's okay to have sex with a 3-year-old because it's in the Talmud. They do say it's okay to kill the Gazan children because they're the Amalek, and because in the Old Testament they were told, God told them, and this is true, kill them all, men, women, children, take it all. That was specific instruction from God in that moment against those people. That's not what's the messaging from God to Jews today. The message from God to Jews today is hit your knees and accept my son, the Lord Jesus Christ, who came to seek the lost. And the Jewish nation is lost, right? Because they had the Messiah from their own line, the line of David, okay, walked on the water in their own land, and they rejected him. They killed him. Right? They even did worse than reject him. They killed him. Now, they don't know what they did when they killed him, because it took Christianity to the moon. And what is there, 15 million Jews in the world? How many Christians right now? And a great pop quiz for the Christian Zionist is, how many more Christians do you think are in heaven today right now than Jews? And so that tells me two things. A, your DNA means nothing. Okay. B, it was never so small. God's plan was never so small to just include this little pocket of people, the Jewish people, the Israelite. Okay, they'll think of themselves as the seed of Abraham, but they're not. Jesus Christ is the seed of Abraham, and therefore everyone who believes on him inherits the promises of Abraham. So you must understand this. And so when we speak to our Jewish brother, when we talk to our Jewish sister, it's not about anything other than Christ. Your politics and your rituals and greater Israel, forget all that. You need to accept the Lord Jesus Christ now, okay, or spend eternity separated from God. And so that's what we're trying to prevent, not just Jews, but all souls on this planet. Unreached peoples, walked away peoples that are living in darkness. We're supposed to seek them out. Remember, Christ came to seek the lost. That's what he was looking for. That was his desire. I want the most messed up, the most pagan, the most demonic. Give them to me. That's my specialty. That's what Christ said. Okay. So the Jewish person is a part of that same crowd, walking in darkness, walking in eternal separation from God. They just don't know it yet. And so if you loved them, you would spread that out. So we have multiple things kind of working together, coming together. Major issue right now, of course, is this window of time. And Trump has already said, see, he was so desperate for a peace deal. He didn't want to do this war, but we had Epstein files breathing down his neck. Pam Bondi was going to have to testify under oath, under subpoena in March. And what happened? He fired her, let her go. He knew she couldn't have handled that subpoena. She gave one of the most ridiculous congressional testimonies that you will ever see. This is in February of 2026, talking about the Dow 50,000, and they're asking about Epstein survivors. They asked Pam Bondi, turn around and say something to the Epstein survivors. She wouldn't flinch, right? So she was a poor person to have in that kind of high pressure role. We needed Todd Blanche. Trump says this is a man's job and a monster's job. Put Todd Blanche in there and he will stonewall the investigation. And that's where we've been since. But remember, Pam Bondi blew it in February. The war started end of February. And we've been in this period of time in which we're not addressing the Epstein files. They're not front and center like they absolutely should be every single day until we have prosecutions of high-level people. This is the only way this stops. High-level people within the prosecution of the Epstein files. It's the only way this works. You can't give us somebody we've never heard of, because we can see six for our own eyes: Leon Black, Jess Staley, Lex Wexner. There is a Sultan of Brunei in there. Those are what we're looking for. Really rich people, really powerful people that did terrible things to children. The United States prosecuted them, tried them, convicted them, and hung them. That's what we're looking for here in America. Until that happens, we can't get to any business. We can't get to anything else, right? And we're going to have more chaos and disruption thrown our way as long as the Epstein files are still just breathing in the background, haunting Donald Trump. See, eventually Donald Trump is going to lose control of the Epstein files because he will not be president for life, right? J.D. Vance might win, but J.D. Vance is a part of the cover-up too. There's reporting he's in the Situation Room with senior officials. How do we bury this? So see, he is going to be a part of this swamp take. You know, when Donald Trump came down the stairs in 2015, he talked about two things. We're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for that wall. But he also said this. He said, we're going to drain the swamp. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that Donald Trump was a big time player in the swamp. I would have never thought that. But what did he do about a year ago? He switched teams, joined the swamp. We didn't demolish the swamp. We grew the swamp. This is a worse swamp than the one that we were talking about. Like, say, the crowd that was involved in the Russia stuff. Okay, all the intelligence people, the FBI people, that's a deep state. That's a swamp. That's what I was thinking about in my mind. I never thought of Donald Trump as a part of the swamp in government cover-up. And this is the biggest cover-up in the history of this country. Anybody who wants to put something else in front of the Epstein files as a cover-up is not being honest with themselves, or they're a baby boomer. Those are the only two categories of people. Dishonest and baby boomers are the only ones that right now don't seem to appreciate the magnitude of the Epstein files cover-up. Okay, while they're simultaneously cheering on the Gazan slaughter, cheering on the slaughter in Beirut, cheering on the wars, they have no interest, no desire to get to the bottom of the Epstein files. And I give you 6 names right now. And we're also, remember, still withholding 3 million files. Now, a lawsuit was filed by a journalist, and a judge, a federal judge, ordered Todd Blanche. He has to release the redacted files. They must be made unredacted. The law, and remember, Congress sets all laws, right? So the FBI director, he is below Congress. So Congress gives him a law. He has to abide by that, or he's now subject to penalty by Congress. And if we commit a crime against Congress, like, say, lie to them, we're going to jail. We'll go to jail for a year for lying to them. But Todd Blanche and all these players are in direct violation of federal law right now. They were not allowed to redact things outside of what was permissible, and it was to protect victim information. But that's not what the Department of Justice redacted. They redacted the sender saying a filthy thing to Jeffrey Epstein. Excuse me. Okay, that's the name we need. So if there's no co-conspirators, and this guy is talking to Jeffrey Epstein about what he's going to do with the girls, where are the girls, what's the ages of the girls, okay, that's a co-conspirator. That's somebody that must be investigated interviewed by the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice. Every single person that has had their hands in the Epstein cover-up now has to go back to that list of emails of very bad men emailing Jeffrey that they want a piece of this action. They want to be a part of what he's doing. Okay. That they enjoy this lifestyle, that they have the same kicks when it comes to little kids, raping them and eating them. And the breathtaking part in America right now, not that we're obese and sick and sloppy with our money, sloppy with our savings, sloppy with our voting, all that stuff, right? It's that we have proof that elites were killing, eating, and raping kids, and like 20% of the population cared. That's an indictment on this country, and that's why empires fail. You know, all empires up to date have failed, crashed and burned. America's only 250. Remember, we're going to celebrate 250 this summer, this 4th of July, this Saturday. And you're telling me that an empire like that can continue, where the most beloved political figure of all time, Donald Trump, and that is true. He has built the greatest political fan base of any politician in the history of any country at any time, anywhere in the world. It's Donald Trump. Okay. The fact that he is the author of the greatest cover-up in American history, and nobody seems to really want to make a move on saying, okay, he's got to go. We demand justice. We demand to see the files. You have to take the black lines off of the email and show us who sent something that filthy to Jeffrey Epstein. We need their names. Okay. And then I know the public will do their thing, depending on trial, conviction. Are these people being executed? They would never be allowed back in public anyways, but go ahead, take them to court. If the jury says they didn't do anything, it was all Ghislaine, it was all Jeffrey, fine. The public will deal with those people privately, but there's enough evidence and emails in the 6 million Jeffrey Epstein documents that you could put no less than 100 men behind bars, no less than. That's the kind of numbers we're talking about. But if you're a baby boomer demographic, okay, you don't see that. So that scales over your eyes. And I'm not sure where it comes from. I mean, I think it's this. I think it's the fact that they didn't have God first in their heart. So that was their first mistake. And then when Donald Trump came, they were so scared. Most baby boomers for the last 10, 15 years have been scared to death of Democrats. They're going to trans on them, the DEI, the spending, the size of government, the corruption in government, all that stuff was scaring the baby boomer. And they didn't think that there was anyone coming to help. But Donald Trump did come, and he scratched and itched and tickled right where they were most scared, most fearful. Right. So the baby boomer says, that's our guy. He's the one. And they get this boost, this new encouragement that they're going to fight for America and that they're going to take down the Democrats and the deep state, all these terrible players, and we're going to restore America again. That's what they said. And that's how they felt in their hearts. Okay. Now, of course, 12 years later, 10 years later, what do we have? Well, we have Donald Trump having made $580 million in crypto earnings so far since he's been president, second term, 580 million crypto. Much of that came from his coin, his stupid little coin, in which, you know, the way those tokens work is you'll get a famous person or an entity that's boosting up a coin, a token. And they hold a majority of the tokens, but then they get their fans to buy it. And then what happens? They boost that up. They boost that up. The owner, the founder, the creator of it, he cashes in, he's gone. And then the floor just sinks. You know, most Trump fans that bought the Trump token, they're down 90%. There's no way they can ever get that money back. Trump made a fortune on that coin, though. Okay. He's selling watches. He's doing very well. He and his family are going to be richer than ever after this. And we're always told this with Donald Trump. He was a billionaire and he sacrificed this wonderful life and all of these business opportunities to come save America. But now we know he's making more money now than he did as a real estate investor. I mean, you're making 600 million a year in crypto. And he claims it's a blind trust. That's BS. He's pitching Dell stock. He's pitching AI, TikTok, Larry Ellison. He's got all these relationships. Trump's money is behind everything that Trump goes out and promotes. So Trump's making a fortune. His family's making a fortune. We said we were sick of corruption, so we thought he would help with that. Turns out he's a part of that because he won't investigate the fraud we found in USAID, nothing happened there. He will not touch Epstein files. I mean, Donald Trump will not, on his own heart, do it. He will have to be forced to do it or done without his control. He will never give you the Epstein files. Okay. He will not admit failure in the Iran situation. He will not apologize for the inflation that it has cost us. He is the same as the monsters that you were so scared of with Obama and George Bush and Joe Biden and these people, Bill Clinton, these people. How is he different? From an inflation perspective, he's the worst president of all time because it's never been more expensive in America. Now, I don't actually think he's the worst president of all time because of that, but you can't give him any credit for that. Okay. As far as deportations, we were promised a closed border and to start deportations. So far, since he took office the second time, less than 300,000 deportations booted from America. 20 million came in. I agree the border's closed. It's 94% closed. That's the stat they put on it. They're still building the wall. I'm not going to criticize that. We know the invasion was stopped. We know that Joe Biden led an invasion. So we do have to say thank you for restoring some order at the southern border. Now you have to kick them out, even if they're really nice people, even if they've got the best heart. Why? Well, their introduction to the country was a crime. And we were already over capacity, and we kind of didn't have room for anybody else, not from our resources, our housing, and we had high inflation. So we couldn't let you in. Even if you asked nicely, you got to go. And he's not doing that. We have a foreign war going. Russia, Ukraine, if we could just for a minute there, Ukraine, of course, being fully funded by the rest of the world, NATO, Europe, United States, to the tune of big money. The United States is in for $300 billion on Ukraine already. Just approved $9 billion a week ago. Europe has come in with substantial funding, but Ukraine is making a new, more aggressive attack on Moscow, hitting infrastructure, hitting oil, and they're doing it via drone. And, this war is so strange because, of course, Russia has the capacity to destroy Ukraine today, tomorrow, whenever they want to do it. If they say this is the moment we're going all in, Kiev doesn't exist after we're done, they could do that. They have shown restraint. They wanted Crimea and the Donbass, and the United States says, no, this is the perfect opportunity to pick a fight. Europe says, we hate Russia, we're in too. All these things started happening in 22, and we still have like no end date coming on that war, but an escalation coming. And I think really what needs to be said is it's not Ukraine that's going to feel the brunt of this next Russian wave of attacks. It's going to be places like Poland. It's going to be NATO interests in and around Ukraine. Why? That's the only reason this is going on still. Ukraine, left to its own resources, is demolished about a week into that war, but they have been funded like they're a little brother, they're a trust fund child, a blank check for what they need to do to keep this war going as long as they can. Ukraine will say, well, we just have to write them out. We're gonna make this so unpopular in Russia that the people are gonna, riot. We're going to drain them of all their resources. And there's no doubt we have 1 million dead soldiers between the two countries. We have tremendous military resources having been consumed, used during this war. There's no doubt this has not been a good thing for Russia, but something that they felt like they needed to do. And oil has been very good to Russia throughout this process. So economically, they're a military country producing a ton of oil with a vast land and territory. Ukraine, is a fraction of that, but with the support of Europe and the US, they can, in theory, go as long as they can continue to roll people to the front line. And of course, Ukraine does grab citizens from the street corner against their will and says, you're now in service. They've put Down syndrome people in their military because they needed frontline support. They've lost a tremendous amount of it. Ukraine as a country is completely over. It's done. Once this war is over, whenever that comes, and of course it comes, all the men, working men, call it 18 to 45, they're all dead. The women have left. The seniors, of course, are not going to be having families again in Ukraine. And then nobody's having children. So Ukraine as a country will have to become a refugees place or an expansion of Jewish. And of course, Zelensky is Jewish. So you could absolutely see settlers, Jewish blood settlers in Ukraine. But most likely it'll need to be a place where we send all of our Afghanis and our Iranian, our Persian folks, any Africa. Ukraine is going to be that destination. And maybe that's how it should end up, a third world hellhole that, quite frankly, Europe and the US turned into. And it was always a very corrupt country. That's why we've liked it. We can get a lot of things done, wash a lot of money, hide taxes through Ukraine. So we like countries that are willing to play like that. But this one won't be able to sustain itself ever again. Its population is toast. It's wrecked. I mean, Japan, which is like a sophisticated country, they have a major demographic problem coming. The US has a major problem with demographics. China, they didn't produce enough children. So you have that. This is going to be like a whole nother level. Breeding age people, 18 to 45, are just, they don't live there anymore. You don't have any of them. You have, maybe some middle school kids, and then you pick it up at 65 or 70, and they'll be dead soon too. So that is a mess. That is a disgrace. That should break the heart of so many Americans to know that your tax dollars were literally thrown into a toilet to watch innocent people die. So Russia, they want Crimea, take it. What is it business of ours? You want the Donbass? Take it. Certainly nothing that could affect us being 6, 7, 8, 10,000 miles away. Why do we care? Well, it feeds a war machine, and that one's been fed heavily. Iran has been fed. Remember, that's already $100 billion war in Iran, plus the cost of inflation you and I have had to, endure with no apology. He said he likes the inflation because when it comes down back to where we started, he'll feel like that's a victory. But we were actually, when we elected President Trump, we needed help with inflation. It was too expensive in America. You can't buy homes. The groceries are too expensive. Insurance, everything that you have to buy, it goes up, not down. But the paychecks don't keep up with those increases across the board. So we elected Donald Trump, thought he could help with that. He made it worse, way worse. Started a war, created an inflationary bill in the big, beautiful bill, and then printed money to make up the deficit because of the tax cut. And so we have an inflated economy once again with no end in sight. So we have to put an F so far on the administration. Why? We don't see any MAGA agenda being done. We don't see any MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. We just reported on this earlier in the week. They just approved, Trump's FDA, voted 9-0 to approve Moderna's mRNA flu vaccine for the fall. Influenza is the name of the product. And they have gotten approval for production. First time ever, mRNA in a flu vaccine. And again, how we open the show, it takes my breath away how many people are willing to defend big pharma and government institutions who've been exposed as liars and profiteers. Dr. Fauci made a fortune on the vaccines. That's provable. Do you think he was going to say something bad about it, even if it was for your best interest? Of course not. It was a cookie cutter, one size fits all. Take it. It'll save your life. And we know that's not true. They'll say, because I love our vaccine fans, what they'll tell us is that, well, it's never said that it was going to take away, you could never get it, transmission. It was only going to, for sure, though, minimize scary outcomes. It was not going to lead to death if you took a vaccine. COVID wasn't leading to death. Flu is not leading to death. If you look at seniors that take the COVID shot or the flu shot, it actually increases their mortality, not decreases. Do you understand how toxic it is to put that in your body once a year for 80 years? And it's a guess anyways. They don't know what they're looking at when they do flu. Flu has a 30% chance of being affected, the flu vaccine. It's a 30% guess. Two out of 3 they're going to miss, and it provides zero protection. Not just the fake protection that they tell you. People aren't dying from the flu. Who's dying from the flu? Who's dying from COVID? Nobody. You're taking a vaccine, though, that can induce death. That's the difference. That's the problem. And we have listeners, we have people that will respond and say, how irresponsible, how cruel, how mean. The vaccine was a life-saving Nobel Peace Prize winning invention. And yeah, we're criticizing it. We know it hurt people. We're going to show some stats during this. Just randomly, here's from a state of Iowa, a 39-year-old, a blood clot died, a 72-year-old, no prior health concerns. Are these people all faking their deaths? The grandmother that just, okay, doc, I'm only 66, but if you say I'm a senior and need the, and then she drops dead, or the 32-year-old with a blood clot after his vaccine, he's making that up, or was that a coincidence? The vaccine enthusiast will have to go with a coincidence almost every single time. And then when does that run out? That's lottery. That's lotto ticket type odds that, 30,000 COVID deaths, they all took place shortly after the vaccine was given. Those were all coincidences. You've got to be crazy to think that. So that's what we have to kind of chisel away at and do. What is going on in that American's head that would make them defy data, defy what their eyes can tell them? Well, that person was fine and now they're dead. They were only 36. They were only 21. They were only 42. They're dead. Yeah, they got a vaccine and they didn't make it to the car. They didn't wake up the next morning. That happened a lot of times in America. We're not saying, let's do this. Let's just pretend that the COVID shot was invented truly for the purest of reasons, for you and I's best interest. When they made it like they were hand carving a wedding gift out of wood and meticulous and say, this is going to be with this family forever. I want them to really enjoy this. I'm going to put everything I have to ensure this is a memorable thing. If the scientists at Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, and of course, we forget to mention a lot too, the Department of the Department of Defense owns the patent on every single COVID shot. So you didn't take a Pfizer, you took a government shot that was labeled and packaged in Pfizer stuff, because it probably wouldn't have sounded good. Let me just ask that vaccine person if they would have actually slapped a Department of Defense label on the COVID shot. And the messaging was, come get your Department of Defense free vaccine, free life-saving vaccine. Would you have still taken it, even though it was government stamped, government labeled? Bet you wouldn't have. And it was free. But when you put Pfizer behind it, this is Pfizer. This is Johnson & Johnson. They would never hurt a fly, except for baby powder and stuff like that. That is carcinogenic stuff. Moderna hurt a person? No way. These people are like, they're Boy Scouts plus choir boys plus your favorite pastor you've ever known. They're wrapped into one there at Pfizer like that. Then you took it, right? So, but you have to understand that though. Don't get ahead of yourself. When you took a COVID shot, you took a product that was licensed and patented by the Department of Defense. Now, why would they be in that kind of business? Why would they be in the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine business, Department of Defense? Why would they be involved in that? Then why would they also not sell it direct to source, direct to customer? Why would they go through Pfizer and Moderna? Why would they do that if they're trying to save our life? It just doesn't add up that this was as sweet and innocent as everybody tells us. And so we are asking questions. We are having concerns. We're concerned about the flu vaccine rollout. We're suggesting that that could be a problem. We're suggesting, in theory, that you could see COVID 2.0 coming through with this flu vaccine, now mRNA style. That is not going to go over well with that original MAGA person that used to boo Donald Trump when he would mention the vaccine. Very few people talk about that either. Donald Trump stopped talking about his Operation Warp Speed vaccine. And just setting Trump in this for a second, they played him like a sucker, played him for a fool. This is what they told President Trump. Hey, listen, President Trump, this is a historic moment. You have so many lives at stake. We could put together a vaccine for you that's going to save the world, and you're going to get the glory. You're going to get the credit. You are going to be world famous, historical figure, having saved 20, 30, 50 million lives because you stamped Operation Warp Speed, and the best of government and the best of private sector came together and brought you the COVID-19 shot. The Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 shot, 99% effective, safe and effective. And we're going to get this thing to where we start giving to 6-month-olds. President Trump, you are going to be, wow, this is going to be good for you. And he lapped that up. He also okayed the flatten the curve, shut the economy down for 2 weeks. Donald Trump said it was okay. Could have said no, but he took Dr. Fauci's advice on it, shut it down. We did the masking and the 6 feet and all that stuff. And Donald Trump thought he saved the world. He tried to bring that same topic up later on in the 2024 campaign, Operation Warp Speed, the COVID-19. He was booed. He was booed for even mentioning it. Why? It hurt a lot of people. And the fans of his, he's never apologized for the COVID shot, mind you. Donald Trump, who said, I'm government, I'm head of state, I'm the one authorizing Operation Warp Speed. He's never apologized for the bad outcomes, the closed businesses, the inflation that came from. Remember, COVID, we had the biggest separation in wealth right there. Our poor got poor and our rich went on a turbocharged amount of wealth that came in. It was breathtaking. And so what we have to do is now a culture stop back and say, even though we love you, President Trump, you can't let this one go. We need full investigations into COVID. We needed full investigations into January 6th and the 2020 election. Okay. We're not getting those things either. We still need 9/11 investigated in those files. Trump said he would do it. The problem is okay, give us either Epstein or 9/11. Both doom the government. The government is scared to death at both of those two topics. They know how horrific the optical already is. Building 7 was never struck by a plane. You understand that? An office fire took place over about 8 hours, and then it came down like an old man settling into a nice warm bath. Perfect, demolition style. And they say that was structurally that can happen to steel. Steel needs 1,800 degrees to melt, and we didn't get there with office furniture burning or copier paper burning. That didn't happen. Howard Lutnick, remember the famous Howard Lutnick who was on Jeffrey's Island and lied about it? He officed out of the Twin Towers. But guess who wasn't there that day? Howard Lutnick. He was off, had to take his kid to school, and he'll tell us he never had to take his kid. It was just a random, God saved him. Larry Silverstein, the owner of the Twin Towers and Building 7, he ate breakfast at the top floor every morning, except for what morning? September 11th, 2001. He had a dermatology appointment. See, don't you want to know a little bit more about that? Or do you want to still go with the narrative that a guy in a cave in Afghanistan took out 3 buildings with 2 planes and they all fell demolition style? That's New York City. That's the Twins. And then the Pentagon one, remember? Where the Pentagon is this short, flat little building. And they said they brought that plane in and just kind of did, this is commercial plane, 747s. Can't happen. And then, of course, the plane in Pennsylvania that just disintegrated and went into the ground, right? There was no debris left from the plane. One thing we do know, don't know everything, is that the story, the narrative around 9/11, it's all lies. It's all lies. So we need 9/11. We need COVID vaccine. We need to know, why did you have a patent for the COVID vaccine in before 2019? Why did you have that? How did you guess that we were going to have that? Don't you want to know that? Like, who cares? The politicians from then, they're done. They're gone. They don't have you by the strings anymore. Don't you just want to know the truth at some point? At some point, we must crave the truth, even if it's painful. So we're looking at for 2 things coming up, looking at continued escalation of bombing in Lebanon. That's not stopping. Iran is going to have to do something, which now tells the U.S. we're going to have to bomb you, which is good. I mean, trust me, Donald Trump would rather be in a full-fledged war with Iran right now than at home dealing with the Epstein files. He'd do a nuclear war. He'd do a World War III. He would do an invasion. He would do anything. He would go to the moon before he would come home and deal with the Epstein files. And so we do have to be very scared of that still. There is great progress happening in that, though. They are under judge's order to release the rest. And so we're going to demand the rest of these. We're going to be back again tomorrow, folks. Do this until next time. Serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.